Welcome back, gang. It's Deltia from Deltiasgaming.com here with a build I've kind of perfected over the last year, a hybrid Stam-ish, Magic-ish Dragonknight PvP build for the Elder Scrolls Online Update 35 Last Steps. You're going to want to watch this build so you can see what the S-tier Stamina Dragonknight really plays like, why you should use it, alternate gear sets, skills, and my thought process on how and why I use the way I do. This is the predominant build I've been using for the past year on stream, and it feels like it is the most strong it's ever been. Huge, massive AoE cleave damage, great survivability, easy to obtain gear sets outside of the Mythic, and it's just a blast to play. So buckle up. Stam DK Hybrid, I think it's S tier. Let me explain why. If you got something out of this video, make sure to smash that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I'll be doing a mix of PvE and PvP in the Elder Scrolls Online. Here we go. Let's go over skills first. In front bar, I go with dual wield. Now, there's a couple different options of what you can go with on your front bar. Dual wield maces. The reason I go dual wield, I cannot stand dizzying swing. Dizzying swing drones, you know who you are, can't stand it. So I go dual wield with whirling blades as my big AoE execute in my predominant main spammable, along with fully charged dual wield attacks. I don't sit there and do a whole lot of main spambles. I try to dodge in, get a kill, and get out, and then re-engage. That's why I go dual wield. Now, if you want the 2H playstyle, all you have to do is swap out to a 2H, a Maul, and then put Dizzying Swing in my 5 key, which is Whirling Blades. Basically, the only change you need to make this if you like the Dizzying Swing setup, and that's the change I would make for a duel. But can keep in mind, I go for big, huge AoE kills and nukes and battlegrounds in Cyrodiil and Imperial City. That's what I use. Some important notes before we get in the dots. They don't hit nearly as hard now because they apply every 2 seconds rather than 1 and last 24 seconds. There's still some use to them, but you kind of want to shift into more of an aggressive bursty playstyle than a damage over time setup playstyle. So there's some justifications on why I use these. Keep that in mind. That's why I've made this change. So there's one really worthwhile dot, I think, and that's Noxious Breath. This is AoE conal in front of you, hard hitting, and gets stealthers out of stealth, and it gives major breach, so reducing the resistances, increasing your damage. It costs stamina. It's a fantastic ability all around. Keep in mind, it lasts 24 seconds. It might feed into Mara's Bomb, which is a very heavy survivability set, but mainly I'm not using it for the poison proc damage. I'm mainly using it for the major breach, along with poisoning an enemy for a status effect possibly. So that's why I got Noxious Breath on the front bar. Next ability up is Flames of Oblivion. A lot of reasons to use this. Low cost magic ability. It shoots out 3 fireballs, hits like an absolute hammer, and also it's not necessarily a damage over time per se. It just has a lot of pressure for 3 targets, and it procs every 5 seconds. It also gives us the crit buff while we're on our front bar, both spell critical and weapon critical, and I actually switched to a high crit build with this guy specifically for that reason. So as a low cost magic ability, whether it's set and forget or whether you activate it, very, very effective in a 1v1 or a 1vx situation. Can't recommend this enough over something like Venomous Claw, which I no longer slot because of the dot pressure issues. Now we have a main spammable option, that Molten Whip. It got changed, kind of a goofy change, so it's half magic, half stamina. This really isn't a problem for a hybrid PvP build, more of a PvE issue. So with this build, that's a fantastic change. We typically don't want to use this as a main spammable, but as a filler. Again, fully charged heavy attacks and a Whirling Blades here is enough to get someone down. This is kind of like our finisher, Big Pressure, and we want to get 3 stacks up. So anytime you cast an Ardent Flame ability, you get a stack. Well, Noxious Breath and Flames of Oblivion can be cast out of combat without a target. So actually you want to keep these 3 stacks up at all times, so that way when you are ready to whip, bang, you have it ready. And the 3 stacks, you're going to get a lot more seconds to keep those active. That increases the damage of your next Molten Whip and weapon and spell damage. So maintaining the 3 stacks and not necessarily always using it is the play with this ability. So I use the 3 stacks as a kill shot or to get someone down and execute, and then I will use Whirling Blades to finish them. And then on the front bar, we have Shattering Rocks. This is the other morph of Fossilize. It's our control mechanism. This costs a lot of magic, but they can't block or dodge this stun, making it absolutely fantastic. The other morph, Fossilize, adds an immobilization component to it as well. Very, very strong. If you don't feel like you need extra healing, go with Fossilize. Me, I love being tanky, and this does give you a little bit of healing when the stun ends, so it allows me to keep throttling down and applying pressure, kind of like I did on my Magpar. Well, before they gutted sweeps and jabs. So that's That's why I play my DK all the time now. All right, back to the video. So that's kind of how the front bar works. Again, dual wield 2H, both great options. Me, Meathead, Rambo in, big AoE cleave, screaming, God bless America. That's the playstyle I love. And then the back bar. This is kind of where it gets interesting. I went with the Frost Staff on the back bar, and it's kind of an interesting change. Let me explain the reasons why. Number one, your weapon trait does not get cut in half like Sword and Shield. Number two, you get the same block mitigation that you would with Sword and Shield. Number three is you can proc and build back Magicka at range. So you can proc your enchant, you can build back magic. It's very, very easy to start procking Date or Trickery on our back bar, which we'll get to a little bit later. And you can actually fully charge, rip it off, and it hits really hard. Or you can bar swap, and sometimes it procs Plague if you get to your front bar fast enough. I've had way more luck with the Frost Staff, switching a lot of my builds to back bar Frost Staff, because it's so advantageous for all those reasons I just listed. See, I'm giving you facts today. So Sword and Shield, also another great option, but I really recommend going with Frost if you can, so level that up. An important thing with the Frost Staff is the Tri-Focus. It's the very first passive in the skill line. I do not take 2 points into this and block with stamina. So that way you're not gonna blow through your Magicka, which is primarily your buffs and healing. So keep in mind, take the Frost Staff, level up Destruction Staff skill line. Do not take the first 2 points in the very first passive Tri-Focus. Going to our back bar, we have our armor buff, Volatile Armor. This kind of got nerfed as well. It lasts a lot longer. So this is kind of like my first dot I usually apply when I charge into combat. If you like another armor buff type thing, you can swap this out. Still recommend using it, and it scales off your physical and spell resistance, which is actually pretty good damage still. It just lasts a little bit longer, implies every 2 seconds, so kind of a nerf on that. Next up is Molten Armaments. So this gives you the Empower buff for fully charged heavy attacks. It reduces the cost as it ranks up. So the reason I use this a lot of times is I do a charge in and do fully charged heavy attacks on my dual wield, and that Empower buff makes them hit very, very hard. You can also fully charge heavy attack back on that Frost Staff to build up magic, and you can get 5-6k crits very reliably, and that's actually a lot of damage. The other morph just lasts longer, so that's useful if you're trying to sustain resources and you have trouble specifically with magic, and also the radius is much higher. So take igneous weapons if you're predominantly playing in groups or you're having trouble magic sustaining, but I rely on ultimates predominantly to sustain, so that's not an issue. Speaking of ultimates to sustain, I think it's important to go over the Earth and Heart passives just briefly in case you don't understand the premises of the Dragonknight in the build, so you can make changes and understand why I have everything set up. So Molten Armament specifically, Earth and Heart is the most impactful passive skill line in the game. When you cast an Earth and Heart ability, you gain Minor Brutality. So that is inside the DK's kit, so you can get major and minor brutality. It's also why you see a lot of magic DKs using weapon damage enchants instead of spell damage. So it's going to increase your weapon damage as well as generate ultimate. So casting an Earth and Heart ability like our front bar Shattering Rocks or our back bar like this will buff us for 20 seconds and generate ultimate. Ultimate is the name of the game with Dragonknight, because of the Battle Roar passive right here. You use ultimate and you get back a flood of resources, health, magic, and stamina. 50 each per ultimate spent. So if you save up for a huge 500 ultimate and pop it, it's an absolute hill to full. And so that's why you want to build towards ultimate. That's why you just want to set up your skills and understand I should be using an Earth and Heart ability frequently to generate ultimate, but also minor brutality. Big brain. Another reason Helping Hands, when you cast a non-stamina costing Earth Heart ability, you restore 990 stamina. You can actually cheese this by spam casting Cinderstorm, the Ash Cloud base morph, over and over and over, but that's more for a duel. But just realize you can hold block indefinitely and spam that. It's kind of what I use in PvE. So another reason why we have that. Now we have Race Against Time. Race Against Time. It's annoying to get a hold of. Yes, I understand that, but what it does is remove snares and immobilization and also increases our crit damage. Again, I'm stacking a lot of crit, so increased crit damage hits like an absolute hammer. Psijic Order, I understand it's a nightmare to get a hold of. If you just cannot stand getting it, you can always go with the Lewd. This is the medium armor ability. When you get hit, it's going to give you a little bit of speed, but it's not going to remove the snares. Shuffle, the other morph, will remove the snares, but a Lewd with the major expedition is very, very nice. Dragonknights actually have a snare removal in their class kit. It is the Morph Protective Plate. So it's going to grant immunity to snares and immobilizations, but you're not going to get the major expedition reliably with Daedric Trickery. So just realize it is a fundamental skill. It's a pain in the butt, but those are the flex options. Now, if you're going to be dueling, you're going to be sweating down Stormhaven and Alakir, and God bless the duelers, then I would go with Cinderstorm. And the number 3 key on your back bar, Race Against Time, doesn't provide that much, and you can spam cheese Cinderstorm and get tons of healing, or go with the Eruption route and do a ton of damage in a stationary duel fight. And then I would switch out Whirling Blades for Dizzying Swing, and you'll fit in with the Sweat Lords out there in Alakir and Stormhaven. Back bar, Coagulating Blood. This is a huge, massive burst heal, and you really don't want to rely on this as a burst heal. This is an, oh crap, I'm about to die, clicky clicky. That's when it's best used, because it will blow through your resources, specifically magic. So be careful. The lower the HP you get, the better and more effective this is going to be. Also, you gain Major Fortitude, increasing your health recovery by 30%. Something to be aware of with the Draconic Power is anytime a skill from Draconic Power is active, you're going to get increased healing received by 12%. So it's important to kind of keep up that armor buff or Coagulating Blood when you can, because it will make you even more tanky. Now moving on to a skill that is a bit overtuned right now, and that's Resolving Vigor from the Alliance War skill line. This is a heal, cost stamina. One of the huge advantages of it gives minor resolve. So you're going to see heavy armor tank builds coming out, and specifically why I saved the ultimates for last. Minor resolve is incredibly powerful. Kind of makes Magma Incarnate a little bit irrelevant, and makes stamina builds or magic builds almost mandatorily have to use this a lot of times. It's really easy to get 20 to 30,000 armor, especially throwing in a couple pieces of heavy armor. 30,000 is reliable, reducing damage significantly and increasing your healing done. So typically I run this and cast it frequently, because it lasts 20 seconds, minor resolve. So even if you don't need the healing, you can cast this, pre-cast this per se, before you charge into combat is a really good option, because the duration doesn't really last very long, but the buff does. So that Coagulating Blood, you can see your back bar predominantly is used for buffs. Okay, so a lot of armor on people running around. This is why the DK excels exceptionally is your ultimate choices. You have every ultimate at your disposal, and they all are absolutely incredible. So I'm going to start with my front bar and then work on my back bar and explain why it is I use what I use, and I swap things in and out depending on my playstyle. Front bar ultimates, the highest tooltip damage in the game typically is Take Flight. This is a physical damage ability, big AoE knockbacks. The other more Ferocious Leap is a little less damage, but also gives you a massive shield. So that's kind of my defensive, offensive ult. I use it as a peel to knock people back, punt them. I also procs flame damage, so it can proc a status effect, which can be very helpful with the Occultal Overload passive and CP. We can get to that later. But it does scale off your max health. So the lower your max health, the less reliable this defensive ult / offensive ult can be. So Take Flight, or a little bit of a bubble with Ferocious Sleep. Now, the predominantly awesome ultimate all time here is Corrosive Armor. Corrosive Armor is going to give you, cap your damage, do poison damage around, and after 12 seconds, you will ignore armor on direct damage abilities. That means Molten Whip, spin to win. So I predominantly use Leap as a defensive mechanism when I'm low on gas and I just needed something to get me to a potion or line of sight. I use Corrosive Armor as my let's go ham and nuke things, because you roll a Resolving Vigor, you pop Corrosive Armor, and you charge in. It's going to be very hard to die unless you're eating 4 or 5 Siege in Cyrodiil. You pop that, you do some spin to wins with a whip here and there, and you absolutely light people up. And this is why it's really beneficial as a Dragonknight to build towards ultimates, and not necessarily build towards raw damage, because you have an in-class ability you can get very, very frequently that ignores direct damage. So think about building towards ultimate because of this specific reason, and stop relying on Leap for your offensive kill potential. Yes, you can kill one little puglet with a Leap and it looks cool, but would you rather nuke down 10 people with the Plague Break popping Corrosive on your back bar? You've seen the proof in this video. That's how it's done. Last ultimate to go over though is I do switch out my front bar defensive ultimate with Shifting Standard. This comes from Ardent Flame skill line, and this gives a major defile plus a really juicy synergy shackle. It absolutely hits like a truck, so you can recast it. Along with the killing folks while shifting standard is up or banner, keep moving, you can get a leap while your banner is still up because it lasts for pretty much ever. So in group play, consider swapping to shifting standard or maybe dropping something if you have a pocket healer like leap, or you can drop corrosive, especially if you're playing with a necro and a group-centered meathead build focused on necros using synergies and the harmony traits. Really, really good, and you can see why the Dragonknight is absolute fantastic. All right, so we're in game here on my Dragonknight, and this is typically how I run this, okay? So back bar, I got a weapon damage enchant, which we'll get to a little bit, but that's a kind of a little way you can get a bunch of weapon damage before you charge in. But right as I Rambo in, I'm going to get this up. I actually hit Race Against Time. You can see there's a lot of buffs to get managed. Race Against Time gives you 12 seconds of minor force. You got minor resolve for 20 seconds. You got heal and receive, and you got your armor buff. You're ready to go. So as I close the distance, typically I proc that enchant and I fully charge heavy attack in between doing Flames of Oblivion. So I'll do a Flames of Oblivion, charge in, and I got my 3 stacks after a Noxious Whip. And this is kind of when I see what the opponent's going to do. You see my number 1 key on my bar, it's darkened out. The reason why is I can't stun the opponent. I'm constantly looking at that number 1 key for a 7-second cooldown of Break Free. When Break Free is up, I center my burst around Break Free and using that. So I'm just going to build up some ults here. I got everything up. And so typically I get pressure someone, debuff their armor. I got a Flames of Oblivion hitting them pretty hard. I got a 3-stack whip up. This is where I stun, light attack weave, whip, whirling blades, and or a leap. So if I would do it properly, it'd look like this. Go Race Against Time, do a vigor here, and then boom, debuff them. I need to do one more, so that, and then bang, fossilize or shattering rocks, and then you could do a leap, whip, and then bang. And I block cancel it by doing a bar swap. So that's the combo. It'll take some time. You can use Dizzying Swing to set off balance as well instead of using Spin to win, but I found it that way effective. And then I kind of peel back and I just hang out and do some heavy attacks. Because remember, you have Molten Whip. I mean, it does hit pretty hard on heavy attacks. So especially if you have some poisons or some enchants on your weapons, you'll get some status effects rolling and do some damage just by doing heavy attacks, and that's the combo. Now, let's get to gear. I keep it very simple. I'm going to give you tons of different options. There's a bunch of meta loadouts. Some of this is hard to get. Some of it's very easy. I think the gear is not very hard to get on the Dragonknight, except the Mythic. That is a pain in the butt. But this is kind of what I've been using on and off for the last year, and it works. Number 1 is the Monster Helm, good old Bloodspawn. I've already given you 1,000 reasons why Ultimate is really, really useful, unless you skipped the entire video and just clicked the timestamps. How dare you? Watch the ads! So you just generate Ultimate and get more physical resistance. You'll be more tanky, and you can lean on corrosive armor. Makes a lot of sense for the Dragonknight. Couple different options here. Magma Incarnate used to be the best one from the Dread Cellar, but not really that useful anymore. There's actually a heavy attack build. I can't even pronounce it. Arc Druid something set from one of the latest dungeons. Earthen Root Enclave. And that gives major vulnerability, but it does have a 1.2 second proc. It's shock damage, but it's big AoE. So consider trying to test that out if you like major vuln. And you always have Balorgs for big, huge, saving up for a 500 ultimate nukes. But again, when I'm playing 1vx or, in a small group, Bloodspawn, good old Bloodspawn from Spindle Clutch 2 is the way to go. Bar sets, you have a bunch of different defensive sets. So there's a new busted set, Mara's Balm. I actually tried it on my Dragonknight. Yes, it was cheesy. I could sit there and face tank 15 people, kind of like Iron's Blood. It's supposed to get nerfed September 5th, so pretty soon, depending on when you watch this video. So I stopped using it. I just use good old Daedric Trickery when I'm solo. Daedric Trickery, Morrowind set, craftable. It's been working for over a year. The reason why Daedric Trickery is so strong is you can stack buffs on top of each other. So major heroism with the Dragonknight is what you're really going for. You have a Frost Staff on your back bar, so you can just proc it. You'll see this little light up golden effect with little arrows or something that goes around you. That's when a major buff is proc. So you can stack major protection on top of major heroism on top of major expedition. Downside is you don't get a pick. Really, you're using this for that heroism to build ultimates and feed the corrosive armor, feed those big, huge AoE kills. Some alternatives if you don't want to run that. Again, Mara's Balm and it's update 35. I don't know if it's going to get gutted or whatever, but right now it's over the top cheesy. Use if you want to be a sweat or whatnot. Another option is Rallying Cry. This setup is pretty much meta on almost every build. It's very good solo in a small group. It gives weapon and spell damage and crit resistance. The more people it hits, the less effective it becomes. You can front or back bar that set. It's fantastic. It comes in light armor though, so you have to kind of swap out your jewelry and make it work. And then a set that people sleep on is Powerful Assaults. So when you cast Vigor, you're going to get a lot of weapon and spell damage. This was buffed recently, so 12 meters and 15 seconds long. So you're constantly casting Vigor anyways, so why not have a small group, someone running this on your back bar, cast it, bang, flip over, and everyone gets a really nice benefit. Not as tanky as Data Trickeries. For solo and BGs, I don't use it. If I'm playing with a couple other people, a couple other sweats, I'll throw this on, bang, cast Vigor, because I need to get that minor resolve anyways, and go to town. Couple honorable mentions here. Clever Alchemist, if you're a potion guy, like to chug down and do big huge bursts with Balorg. And then Robes of the Hist, assuming Mara Balm is going to get nerfed, this is actually a decent set still that people run. It's Overland set, so yeah, you can get this very, very cheap. It's actually in Shadowfen and sold for dirt cheap, but it's going to give you a lot of healing when you're hit by disabling effect, immobilization, or snare, which is pretty much constantly. And you can heal and kind of ramp this healing up with some of the DK passives. So front bar options, Plague Break went through some recent changes, and after testing on the live in the PTS, it's really strong still. So the dot pressure is not really why you're using Plague Break. You're using Plague Break to infect someone and do a little bit of dot, do a little bit of disease damage, but when they die, they go boom and kill someone around them. So this is the setup for big, huge, massive AoE nukes. No, this is not going to work in a duel, but this is going to work very, very good in open world Cyrodiil and Battlegrounds when people stack. You either corrosive spin to win them or do a leap with the spin. They're dead, and that's how I can kill like 10 people in one clip. And it's very hard to go back and play another class when one class can kill 10 things at a go and not even be a bomber. So Plague Break, disease damage, again, not that good in a duel, but something you can use. You can get it from Rewards of the Worthy, along with Rallying Cry from Rewards of the Worthy. So just play PvP and you'll get these sets. Some other alternatives, Griffin's Reprisal. This is actually a really interesting one. It in a small group, it's very useful because it does bleed damage. You can actually proc your own synergy. It hits like a truck. The bleed tooltip is insane. The downside is that people can dodge roll the little falcon, and the sound is extremely annoying. But if you're playing with a Harmony Necro in like a little group setting, it'll be absolutely fantastic. That comes from Coral Airy. Another alternative is good old Savara's Scale. We've been using this for years and years. It's from Hughes Bane. Kind of a hard set to get a hold of. People aren't really using it, but it's a good alternative for a proc set for poison damage and big, huge AoEs if you don't like Plague Break. And then if you're wanting just to go raw damage, raw stats, Order's Wrath. Increases crit damage, crit healing, so it affects you all around, gives you a bunch of crit. Those are my recommended options. Everyone tells me about Swamp Raiders and Witch Armor Knights and just goofy sets, and you can use whatever you want. But trust me, this loadout works. If you want to try other different sets and proc sets, that's great. But set and forget Plague Break or Order's Wrath is a no-brainer. You'll do big deeds. All right, now we got to cover the mythics. I'm sorry, but you got to use a mythic. Sea Serpent Coil is way overtuned right now. It prevents getting ganked, gives you major courage and major berserk. So it's basically 2 5-pieces in a 1-piece mythic. Though it does snare you for a bit, kind of slow you down. So that's kind of annoying to get a hold of. You can kind of use a different couple options to get around that, but it's absolutely fantastic. Sea Serpent Coil comes with the High Isles. Again, annoying to get a hold of. If you don't have a mythic, you can always swap out the build and just do a back bar, either 2H from Vatashram Hollows and run Rally instead of Molten Armaments. That's actually a decent setup I used to use before I got mythics on PC EU. If you have options and other mythics that you can get, I would recommend Markin's Ring of Majesty. This is from the Deadlands, and it's just a really good set and forget. Mythic give you about 200 weapon or spell damage and a bit of armor. so fantastic. Torque is actually very, very good for resource sustain, especially on a hybrid. It completely carries your resource sustain. And if you wanted to go a dot pressure build and not listen to anything I just told you for the last 20 minutes, Malakath Bands of Brutality, but why would you want to do that? I'm always right. It's my YouTube channel, just ask me. And then that leaves one piece on the body. You can go with Armor of Trainee, gives the most max health for a one piece. And there's a new one called Druid's Braid, high IL craftable, a little bit less max health, but also you can craft it, so it's very, very easy. So here's the gear chart. We're going to pull up and kind of show you the traits and so forth. I like to run 3 heavy, 3 medium, 1 light. Give me a little bit balanced max stat pool, makes me very, very tanky, and I'm still somewhat fast. The traits on my body, I can't recommend this enough. I'm not running Impenetrable. Impen is garbage. You don't get very much for running Impen, so I run 3 well-fitted and 3 sturdy. The 3 sturdy is only if I'm running a mitigation back bar like Ice Staff or Sword and Shield. Otherwise, I run 6 well-fitted, 1 reinforced in the chest, and there you have it. Prismatic glyphs on the big pieces, head, chest, and legs, stamina on the rest. And then you got some options on Plague Break. So 3 body pieces that are medium in the weapons. Now, I'm running maces, and I just told you that you get 100% penetration, so why am I running maces? Well, the reason I run maces, even if I pop corrosive armor, it's just reliable damage outside of corrosive armor. So I experimented with daggers and swords with Plague Break, and yes, during corrosive armor, having daggers or swords outperforms maces because, well, there's no pen on direct damage, spin to win, or molten whip. But outside of corrosive, you need a little bit more reliable DPS, so I swapped back to maces just so it's reliable. Go sharpen in my main hand, Nern into my off, flame into poison. Ice Staff, I go with powered weapon damage, enchant on the back. Jewelry, extremely important to go with 2 swift or more, especially if you're using Sea Serpent's Coil. It is a dramatic increase in your survivability, and I can't even express how good swift is, especially if you gold out the jewelry. If you're a sweat and you really want to take your performance seriously, PvP, you will get a lot of value for swift jewelry. Trust me, I'm right. And then 1 piece trainee, so that's it. And then we got here's a werewolf build set up if you want on my website, link in the description below. I have the skills, but just in case you want to run a werewolf on this build, they still do just fine. Oakensoul, Unleashed Terror, and Dragon's Appetite with 1 piece Magma Incarnate is what I would run if you wanted to run a werewolf on this. I also have a no proc PvP Cyrodiil and Imperial City in case you want to run that. I just recommend Mark of the Prior and Witch Knight's Defense with Torque. Torque actually still works in no proc CP because of course a mythic would work in no proc PvP. Now let's cover the miscellaneous parts of the build. I would recommend Nord by far as the racial choice. Reason why? It has a unique bonus to give back ultimate when taking damage. No other race has this. Again, this is why you're centering your build on building ultimate. Everything to generate ultimate to get corrosive quicker to add to that massive damage and survivability. Yes, other races work, but Nord is a dramatic increase in your survivability and just being an absolute nightmare. 2 other races that are pretty good are Imperial, so it has some reduced costs, you have some good max HP, very tanky, very easy to survive on it, easier to get your ultimate, not necessarily generate it. Another one is Orc, which is very fast. I like that, and I do have another Stam DK that I guess I have 2, because why wouldn't every meathead have 2 Stamina Dragonites that are super aggressive? And I like my Orc. But I always go back to my Nord and board because the ultimate generation, I just feel so tanky. The Orc does feel quicker, though. So keep that in mind if you don't like the Sea Serpent Coil issue. For attributes, highly recommend around 30 to 32,000 HP. When you first start this build, if you're struggling with dying, just stack all attributes into health. It's better than dying. But get to around 30 to 32,000. It's a tank meta, so you can go a little bit lower. And on a Nord, typically I go about 32 health, 32 stamina, 0 magic. Mundus Stone, I go with the Thief, so I increase critical strike chance. There's a lot of pressure that you can provide with just spiky burst Thief damage, and right around 30% critical running maces with a lot of pen is a pretty solid all-around build. So again, you wouldn't run this if you ran Malakath, but then you'd be disregarding the entire video, which, you know, not the first time on YouTube, trust me. Champion points. So you got a bunch of flex options here, but Occultal Overload. I play Battlegrounds a lot where there's no champion points, and frankly, I don't like champion points in PvP, but Occultal Overload allows you, when you apply a status effect, to basically blow people up in a massive area for 12,800 damage. That's why I can just nuke people down outside of a solo fight. So that is worth having, especially in keep fights for big, huge, massive kills. Focus Mending. This is just single target self-heal, so coagulating blood, resolving vigor, shattering rocks. It makes you extraordinarily tanky. Ironclad just reduces damage, direct damage, which is a lot of the damage. And then fighting finesse, believe it or not, again, we're going a lot about crit, especially crit healing. So you forget that it does a lot of crit healing. So that's why it's very valuable if you have about 30% crit or higher. Moving on to the red tree, Ready Spaghetti, celerity, increased movement speed. It's a must. Fortified for increased armor. And then two that I absolutely love, survival instinct. So when someone afflicts you with a status effect, your core combat abilities cost 5% less per stage. So blocking, dodging, these sorts of things, making you very tanky to get out of dodge because you're constantly applied with status effects. A 25% less dodge or blocking, very, very nice. Pain's Refuge. We don't have a cleanse. I'm not running Mara's Balm on this, so it's going to increase our damage reduction per negative status effect. So people are still playing a lot of dots, and you're going to punish them by the more they apply to you, the tanky you're going to get. Green Tree, not really that performance driven, but War Mount, Rationer, Gifted Rider, and Steed's Blessing. Now, we're moving on to the consumables. Something I highly recommend is Smoked Bear Haunch. It is incredibly expensive, but you really need resource sustain for both stamina and magic, and Smoked Bear Haunch will get you that, along with the most max HP. A cheap alternative is Jewels of Misrule. So this is a little less HP, about 400, and a little less recovery at roughly about 50, but it's basically one gazillionth of the cost. I have tried running max, Bewitch Sugar Skull food, max stat food. I think it's complete garbage for this. I would much rather have Smoked Bear Haunch or Jewels. Now, potions, I have a gazillion different potion options, so it just depends on what you're running. Tripods are just the best to go with because the Crown Store has them, and you'll get them for login rewards, and so if you just sit on a bunch of login rewards, they're very, very easy. It gives everything that you want, plus recovery with it. I also run a movable potions. The issue with the movable is you don't have the magic recovery component with it, or if you do have the magic recovery, you don't really have the stamina recovery component. That's going to allow you to charge in, Rambo in without getting stunned. So if you're playing in groups, I switch to that because usually someone provides a little bit of resource sustain when I'm playing in a group. Good way to charge in. Back bar for poisons, I run Escapist Poisons. It's basically a control thing. You can light attack and like kind of lock someone in on your back bar with a frost staff, or you can use the weapon damage enchant and switch these to the front, or you can just run enchants because they are extremely expensive, but that's the best option on the poisons. All right, gang, windy video. Of course, I explained a gazillion things. Hope you got something out of this. I mean, I've played this like a massive amount. PCNA, PCU. Is it the best build out there? I don't know. It's probably a little bit off meta, but then you can adapt it if you're like into duels, or if you're into open world, you're into 1vx, 2vx. It's fantastic. I just love the aggressive playstyle. Every time I go to another class, outside of maybe a stand-in, I always want to come back to my Dragonknight because I pop corrosive. I feel like an indomitable god. I just have fun playing PvP. Will this get nerfed? Battle Roar and corrosive armor? Maybe. But until it does, I still think the Dragonknight is #1 in S tier, and I hope you got something out of this. If you did, click that like, click that subscribe, leave me a comment, and come check me out on twitch.tv/Deltiasgaming. I'm amazing. Just ask my mom. Thanks for watching.